Come closer, my little adventurers. Find your favourite spot. Tuck your feet warm and cosy under the soft blanket and listen. Do you see how the firelight dances softly on the walls, casting long, flickering shadows that look like magic trees? Have you ever wondered what happens when the rest of the world goes to sleep and the quiet hours of the night begin? Today's story will transport us into a hidden world of gentle wonder, guiding us step by step into a deep, peaceful sleep where your mind can rest completely. Tonight, Grandma has a beautiful story about a secret journey. A journey into a world hidden deep beneath our feet, where the stars are replaced by beautiful glowing crystals and the rivers hum a quiet, comforting tune. Imagine a great white castle, standing tall against a dark velvet blue sky, with high stone towers that reach up to touch the silver moon. In this beautiful castle lived a king and his 12 daughters. Each princess was uniquely beautiful, and they all slept together in one enormous grand bedroom filled with the sweet, soothing scent of jasmine and dried lavender. The king loved his daughters more than all the treasures in the world, but he was also very, very puzzled. A great mystery occurred in that castle every single night, a mystery that no one in the entire kingdom could explain. Close your eyes now. Imagine the heavy silk curtains swaying in the night breeze and the soft glow of the candles. And let's begin our journey. Every evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, the king would lead his daughters to their grand bedroom. With a large, heavy iron key, he would lock the princess's heavy oak door and bolt it tight from the outside. He wanted to make absolutely sure that no one could enter and no one could leave until the morning sun arose. The castle was quiet, and the grandfather clock in the lower hallway went tick-tock, tick-tock, counting down the long, peaceful hours of the dark night. But every single morning, when the king turned the heavy iron key and opened the door, he rubbed his eyes in utter surprise and confusion. There, at the foot of each velvet bed, lay their shoes. But they were no longer the neat, polished satin slippers from the night before. They were scuffed, scratched, and completely worn out, with great wide holes in the soles, as if the young girls had been dancing for hours and hours on end through rocky forest paths. The king's deep wonder soon turned into a grand challenge, for he could not solve this mystery alone. He sent his royal messengers with gleaming trumpets to every single corner of the land to announce a grand message. Whoever can discover exactly where my daughters dance at night shall choose the princess he loves most to be his wife, and he shall wear the golden crown when my time is done. Oh, many brave princes and clever explorers came from distant lands to try their luck. They sat in the small room next to the princess's bedroom, watching the locked door with wide eyes. But as the night grew deeper, the castle became too quiet, and the midnight air became too still. One by one, every single visitor fell into a sleep so heavy and deep that even a loud thunderstorm wouldn't have woken them up. And in the morning, they remembered nothing but total silence. Then, one misty afternoon, a gentle young man arrived at the high city gates. He was a youthful, clean-shaven, slender traveller with a beautiful coat of curly brown hair, wearing a clean, simple tunic. He had spent many years wandering through quiet valleys and green fields, and his feet were tired from his long travels across the wide world. As he walked along a lonely forest road lined with ancient whispering oak trees, he met a kind old woman. She wore a bright red shawl, and her eyes twinkled in the shade like little warm lanterns. "Where are you wandering to, young man?" she asked in a soft, gentle voice that sounded exactly like rustling leaves in an autumn breeze. "I don't really know," the slender youth replied with a tired, friendly smile. "Perhaps I will go to the great castle to find out where those 12 princesses go at night. I certainly wouldn't mind finding a peaceful home and resting my weary legs for a long while." The old woman smiled a knowing, secret smile and stepped closer to the youthful traveller. "It isn't as difficult as they say, brave youth," she whispered softly. "Just remember this important piece of advice. When they bring you a silver cup of sweet fruit juice before bed, do not let a single drop touch your tongue. Put the cup away, pretend to be fast asleep, and wait patiently." From under her bright red shawl, she pulled out a magical cloak. It was as light as a spider's web and as grey as the soft morning fog. When you wear this beautiful cloak, the world will not see you. You will be as invisible as the evening wind, she said. And before the youth could even say thank you, the kind old woman vanished completely into the golden shadows of the tall trees. That very night, the slender young man found himself inside the grand castle. The air in the stone corridors was warm, filled with the comforting smell of sweet beeswax candles. He was given a comfortable bed in the small room right next to the princess's large bedroom. As he prepared to rest, the eldest sister knocked gently on his door and brought him a beautiful silver cup filled with sweet juice. But the youth was very clever. He had hidden a small, soft sponge under his chin beneath his simple tunic. He lifted the cup, pretended to take a long drink, and secretly let the sweet liquid soak entirely into the sponge. Then he set the empty silver cup down, lay his head upon the soft pillow, and closed his eyes. Within just a few minutes, he began to snore. A loud, deep, rumbling snore that echoed cheerfully through the long, quiet hallways. The 12 princesses heard his loud snores and laughed together. Their voices sounded like tiny silver bells ringing in the night. They truly thought the young traveller was lost in deep, heavy dreams. Believing they were completely safe, they hurried to their large wooden wardrobes, throwing open the heavy doors to reveal magnificent dresses made of fine lace, soft silk, and smooth satin. They put on sparkling jewels that caught the warm light of the dying fireplace. They brushed their long, beautiful hair and slipped their feet into brand new, polished satin slippers. Only the youngest sister stood quietly by the window, looking out into the dark, silent garden. "I feel as if something very strange is about to happen tonight," she whispered, shivering slightly. "My heart feels heavy, as if a quiet storm is coming." "Don't be a silly little goose," the eldest sister laughed softly, adjusting her sparkling crown. "This young man is snoring louder than a big winter bear. He won't wake up until noon." Then the eldest princess walked over to her wooden bed and tapped the frame gently 3 times. With a low, soft, grinding sound, the entire bed began to sink slowly into the floor, revealing a wide, secret staircase made of old stone that led deep down into the dark earth. One by one, holding their colourful skirts, the princesses began to descend into the quiet darkness. The slender young man quickly jumped out of bed, threw the light grey magic cloak over his simple tunic, and followed them down the stairs, his heart racing with excitement. He walked so quietly and so closely behind them that halfway down the long staircase, he accidentally stepped lightly on the very edge of the youngest sister's shimmering dress. "Someone is pulling my gown!" she cried out, her voice trembling in the dark. "It is just an old nail in the stone wall, nothing more," the eldest sister replied impatiently. "Keep moving down, dear sister. The night is short." At the very bottom of the long, winding stone stairs, they stepped out into a place of impossible, breathtaking beauty. They found themselves in a vast, secret forest beneath the earth, where the ground beneath their satin shoes was as soft as green velvet, and all the tall trees were made of pure, solid silver. Every single leaf, every tiny twig, and every small bud glowed with a cool, pale light that illuminated the long path like 1,000 silver moons. The young man with curly brown hair wished to bring back a proof of this magical place for the king. He looked down at the soft path and carefully picked up a small silver leaf that had fallen gently from a branch. He placed it safely inside the pocket of his simple tunic. The faint sound of his movement rustled through the quiet woods. "Did you hear that sound?" the youngest princess gasped, stopping in her tracks. "It is only a salute of pure joy," the eldest sister cried happily. "The underground palace is welcoming us to the night." They continued walking along the velvet path, and soon the silver forest gave way to an even grander forest, made of pure, radiant gold. The air here felt wonderfully warm and heavy, and the golden leaves hummed a low, beautiful melody as the gentle wind brushed past them. The invisible youth looked around in wonder, and as they walked, his foot brushed against a smooth, golden pebble lying right at the edge of the path. He bent down quietly, picked it up, and slid it safely next to the silver leaf. The tiny pebble clicked softly against his belt. "There is someone behind us, I am certain of it," the youngest sister whispered, her eyes wide. "It is just the sound of the golden trees singing their evening song," the eldest replied with a smile. Finally, they reached a third forest, and this was the most magnificent sight of all. The trees here were made of bright, sparkling diamonds. Every branch was heavy with crystals that reflected a beautiful rainbow of colours, dancing merrily across the stone floor of the massive cave. From a low bush, the young man found a fallen diamond crystal resting on a mossy stone. He picked it up carefully, placing it into his pocket as his final piece of silent proof. Eventually, the 12 princesses and the invisible young man reached the shores of a great underground lake. The water was as still and clear as a glass mirror, perfectly reflecting the brilliant glow of the diamond trees above. 12 beautiful golden boats were waiting patiently by the shore, and in each boat sat a handsome prince with a shining crown of his own. Each princess stepped into her own boat, and the invisible youth hopped quickly into the very last boat, sitting down right beside the youngest sister. As they pushed off, the handsome prince in that boat sighed, wiping his brow. "The boat feels so remarkably heavy tonight," the prince said, rowing with all his might. "The water feels as thick as warm honey. I have to row twice as hard just to move us across the lake." "It must be the warm, heavy air of the diamond cavern," the youngest princess replied softly, though she looked around the empty boat with worried eyes. On the far side of the quiet lake stood a magnificent castle, carved from the very rock of the cavern, but glowing brightly with 10,000 warm lanterns. The cheerful sound of silver trumpets and the rhythmic, gentle beat of drums drifted across the water to welcome them. They entered a grand ballroom with high ceilings and floors made of perfectly polished white marble. There, the 12 princesses began to dance with their princes, whirling, spinning, and laughing in beautiful circles that seemed to never end. The invisible young man walked among them, watching their beautiful satin shoes strike the smooth floor. Whenever a princess set down her golden cup of sweet liquid to rest, the youth would quietly take a sip, leaving the cup completely empty. When the princesses turned back to drink, they would blink in utter confusion. They danced and danced for hours, completely untroubled, until the grandfather clock far above began to signal the coming of dawn, and their fine satin shoes were worn to shreds against the marble floor. The young traveller followed them back up the secret stone stairs for 3 nights in a row, witnessing the exact same magical ball each time. On the 3rd night, as they were leaving the grand ballroom, he noticed a small, beautiful golden cup sitting forgotten on a side table. He picked it up quietly and placed it into his bag, along with the silver leaf, the golden pebble, and the diamond crystal. On the following morning, the time finally came for the young man to stand before the king in the great throne room. The air in the room was heavy and tense. The 12 princesses stood hidden right behind the heavy silk curtains, listening to every word with bated breath, certain that their secret was safe. The grand hallway clock went tick-tock, tick-tock, filling the silence. "Tell me, young traveller," the king said, his deep voice echoing off the high stone walls. "Have you discovered exactly where my 12 daughters dance their shoes to pieces every single night?" The youthful, slender traveller stepped forward, took off his grey cloak, and smiled gently. "They dance in a magnificent castle deep beneath the earth, Your Majesty, far beyond the hidden forests of silver, gold, and diamonds," he replied politely. From his pocket, the youth pulled out the small silver leaf, the smooth golden pebble, and the sparkling diamond crystal. Finally, he placed the beautiful golden cup gently upon the king's wooden table. The 12 princesses stepped out from behind the heavy curtains, their faces pale with surprise. They realized their secret was finally known, and with gentle smiles they told their father the whole wonderful story of the enchanted princes, the secret staircase, and the beautiful underground ballroom. The king looked at the proofs on his table and then at his daughters. He saw that they were safe and happy, and he felt a great wave of peace wash over his heart. True to his royal word, the king allowed the clever young man to choose his bride. The youth with curly brown hair, thinking of the many long years of lonely wandering he had done across the wide world, looked at the sisters and chose the eldest princess, who had a kind heart and a warm smile. A grand wedding celebration was held in the castle gardens, lasting for an entire month, filled with beautiful, gentle music that could be heard for miles around the green hills. And so, my darlings, our beautiful story comes to a peaceful end. The slender young man did not need his magic grey cloak anymore, because he had finally found a true home, a loving family, and a warm, comfortable bed. And the 12 princesses? Well, they only danced at the joyful royal balls in the open castle gardens from then on, and their beautiful shoes stayed safe, polished, and perfectly whole under their beds. Do you hear that, my treasures? The warm fire in our hearth is turning to soft, glowing embers, and the entire house is completely quiet and still. The long day is over, and it is time for you to hop into your own cozy beds and pull the soft blankets all the way up to your chins. The night is gentle, and your room is filled with peace. Perhaps tonight, as you drift off, you will dream of a quiet forest where the leaves are made of silver, the pebbles are made of gold, and the boats float softly across a mirror-light lake under the stars. Let your eyes grow heavy, let your mind rest, and listen to the quiet rhythm of the night. Sleep tight, my beautiful treasures. Good night, sweet dreams, and Grandma will see you very soon.